Hello and welcome to Artsakh Public Television. My guest today is Hugh McDermott, a member of parliament in Australia's largest state of New South Wales. In October 2020, Mr. McDermott championed a successful motion in the Legislative Assembly of New South Wales condemning Turkey-backed Azerbaijan's aggression and calling on the federal government of Australia to join it in recognizing the Republic of Artsakh. Good afternoon, Mr. McDermott. Thank you for accepting our invitation for an interview and joining us on Artsakh Public Television from Sydney, Australia.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Mr. McDermott, although the state of New South Wales, Australia is too far from Artsakh and Armenia, you closely follow the developments in our region and make statements supporting Armenians. This was in the case of Azerbaijan's aggression against Artsakh in 2020, the same when Azerbaijan invaded the sovereign territory of Armenia. How are these developments are seen in Australia?
They're seen with a great deal of alarm and concern. Obviously, we have a large Armenian population and community here in Australia, but also looking at across the world the aggression of Azerbaijan and Turkey and those nations which are breaking democracy, are attempting to throw their weight around or their aggression. So it gives us a great deal of concern as a democratic power in Australia, and a great deal of concern for the people of Artsakh and Armenia.
Mr. McDermott, in your statements you used the Armenian Republic of Artsakh while referring to Nagorno-Karabakh. What's the message of using this name?
Well, the reality is that Artsakh has been Armenian for thousands of years, and well before Azerbaijan was ever a country, or in fact the Turkish people were in existence in regarding those parts of the Caucasus. And it is extremely important that we show our support for the Armenian people. The ethnic cleansing that happened recently last year was absolutely appalling. And the constant violations of Armenia's borders, the death of civilians, the holding of POWs until just recently is been absolutely appalling and breaches international human rights standards. And it is something which we should be very much aware of. I'm very happy and very pleased to support the Armenian people and what is happening in their defense of the Artsakh, because it is Armenian. It is an Armenian area. It has been for, like I've said, thousands of years, and we must show our support, and that's what I'm doing.
Mr. McDermott, as you have already mentioned, the impunity of Azerbaijan for its war crimes and ethnic cleansing in Artsakh in 2020 gave a carte blanche for making new ones. Azerbaijani armed forces continue to fire at Armenian peaceful settlements and kill innocent civilians. And this is happening in the 21st century before the eyes of the international community. How would you comment on this behavior of Azerbaijan?
Well, I think it's firstly shameful that the international community hasn't done more to prevent the war last year and the ethnic cleansing and the human rights abuses. Firstly, I think that the fact that this is happening now on the edge of Europe is a real concern. And the European Union and the Russians need to do more. Obviously, the Russians sent in peacekeepers, but there was a lot more that could have been done. The integrity of the Republic of Artsakh is extremely important. The borders must be secured, and they must go back to what they were before the aggression of Azerbaijan last year. The fact that there are so many POWs, both military and civilian, being held by Azerbaijan as bargaining chips is absolutely appalling. And the constant breaches of the ceasefire agreement by Azerbaijan is absolutely appalling, and there must be penalties for that. I'm also greatly concerned about the amount of military spending and military build-up by Azerbaijan with the support of Turkey and other nations, and the use of those weapons against a democracy such as Artsakh and Armenia is of great concern. And the international community, especially the democracies in Europe, the US, Australia and other places, need to do more to support Artsakh.
Do you see a real mechanism to do this?
Well, as you know, the Minsk group continues to talk, and there's the discussions between the Armenia, Artsakh and Azerbaijan, brokered by the Russians, discussions by the European Council and European Commission. I mean, this goes on, and dialogue is important. But I think that Azerbaijan needs to know that it has become a pariah state. More and more, the more it breaches international standards, the more it breaches democracy and human rights in its own country, as well as to its borders and to its neighbours. That needs to be known. And I think that there is a number of mechanisms that can be put in place. Obviously, public recognition and international recognition by international nations, by different nations talking about what's going on there. More media coverage. Obviously, that is difficult because Azerbaijan is a petro-dictatorship, and so they suppress the internet, they suppress the media in any way they can, or any parts of dissent. So I think that what needs to happen is that there needs to be a more muscular approach as far as diplomatic movements go by Russia, as well as by the European Union. This is something they should have in common. They are constantly talking at loggerheads, the EU and Russia. Well, this is something they should both agree on, and that is defending Armenia and Azerbaijan. Armenia and Artsakh against Azerbaijan.
Mr. McDermott, you have been to Artsakh and Armenia, and you are very well familiar with our region. As an advocate for Artsakh's recognition, what's your perception of this struggle? Do you see a prospect of recognition of Artsakh, including by Australia?
I think it's been very difficult. I think that there is recognition of the Armenian genocide in Australia, in New South Wales and amongst certain states, though the federal government of Australia is yet to recognise that. There is concern by the Australian government and by different state governments of what is going on in Artsakh. It is difficult. I think that there are those members of parliament and those community leaders in Australia which do recognise Artsakh and have said so publicly, me being one of them. And parliaments like my own have condemned the actions of Azerbaijan. I think it's very difficult. I think that the integrity of the Artsakh borders is a difficult issue for many countries because they see the money and support that has been going out by Azerbaijan attempting to bribe and to influence so many nations. Now, I think that there is general recognition in Europe that Artsakh has a claim, and the people of Artsakh have a claim to that territory. But as far as recognition goes, I think that's a long way off yet and needs to continue to be worked for.
Mr. McDermott, in 2019, Australian Friends of Artsakh was launched in Australia. And last year, around 20 new members joined this group, including federal senators. How would you comment on the activities of this network and what to expect regarding the expansion of ties between Artsakh and Australia?
Well, you're absolutely correct. The numbers of members of parliament who've joined the Friends of Artsakh have increased every year since its formation. And in fact, even though COVID has slowed down our parliamentary sittings and has slowed down that communication and meetings between the different Friends of Artsakh, we have still continued to talk. We've still continued to throw our support behind Artsakh and what's going on there. Now, I think that will only build. They will build a continuous discussion between our parliaments. Certainly the Artsakh Friends of Australia has also been very active, and we've continued those dialogues. Once the COVID threat, the COVID pandemic has been beaten and there is more international travel, I'm sure that there will be exchanges between our two countries, between our two parliaments as far as travel goes. I look forward to other members of parliament visiting Artsakh and showing the recognition that it truly deserves. And I think that will happen. But certainly the dialogue will continue. I think we also be realistic and talk directly to Azerbaijan leadership from our parliament. I think there needs to be advocacy done supporting Artsakh and making it very well known to Azerbaijan and their supporters like Turkey that they have a democracy here who supports them. And we do that in this parliament.
Mr. McDermott, I thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me on. And I have one message to say in that I believe very much that Artsakh will survive, that we will continue, that the challenges that are facing the people of Artsakh are hard, but do know that the world community is with you.